A very good morning to you, dear listener, and welcome to Perspectives, a current affairs discussion program on Agate Radio, 95.5 Star FM, Makudi, Benue State. Today on Perspectives, our discussion is focused on the House of Representatives bill seeking to make voting compulsory for Nigerians. Yesterday at plenary on Thursday, a bill sponsored by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, and a member representing Basa and Jos North. That's from Plateau State. In the House of Representatives, the bill which seeks to make voting compulsory for Nigerians of all voting age in national and state elections scared through second reading and leading debate on the general principles and merits of the bill. One of the sponsors, Daniel Asama, who is from Plateau, who is from Jos and Basa and Jos North, Plateau State, argued that the legislation aims to enhance democratic participation by mandating all Nigerians of voting age to vote during elections. And according to him, voting is not only a right but a civic response. Bill proposes an introductory voting for all Nigerians, both at national and state elections, and it seeks to amend relevant provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 to reflect this obligation. And of course, the debate did not stop there. Part of the provisions of the bill, it is also seeking that in default, where citizens fail to vote, they should be fined. So much seems to be happening in the country recently, especially in the two chambers of the National Assembly, the Senate, as well as the House of Representatives. Last edition of this program, we were here analyzing the the Senate's position to make a local government included in the Federation Accounts Allocation Account Committee meetings. And today we're here to focus on what is happening in the House of Representatives. Do citizens need to be compelled through a legislation to vote? And if they fail, they should be sanctioned as this bill is seeking. And are citizens having confidence in the electoral system to enable their participation to vote? Are citizens aware of their civic responsibility? Do they need to be compelled by law to exercise their civic responsibility? We shall try to discuss around some of these issues and see the extent to which this bill aligns with the interest of Nigerians. I have been joined here in the studio by two discussants who will share thoughts with us on this subject matter. First, Professor James Apan is the former resident electoral commissioner in Kogi State. He is a former head of Department Political Science at the Benue State University, Makudi, formerly now Reverend Father Moses Oshoa Adasu University. A seasoned political scientist is our guest on the program this morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Perspectives, Professor Apan. Welcome to
thanks, Nat, for having me, and good morning, listeners.
All right. We also have on this program today a former House of Representatives candidate in the last general elections on the platform of Labour Party for Vandikia Conshisha Federal Constituency. He is also a public affairs analyst and a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Linguistics at the former Benue State University, now Reverend Father Moses Oshoa Adasu University, Dr. Gamane Yuse. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Yuse. Welcome to Perspectives.
Thank you very much, Nat, and I welcome all the listeners.
Thank you. My name is Nathaniel Nongo, welcoming you to this Friday edition of the program. And if you are tuning in to Perspectives for the first time, we would like to inform you that it is always audience participatory. At 10 o'clock, you can make the microphone yours on this program by phoning in to offer your thoughts. The line through which you can reach us is 0814-335-9292. Again, the number is 0814-335-9292. You may also participate by sending an SMS to 0912-699-9404. The SMS line, once again, is 0912-699-9404. It's available on WhatsApp as well. Listen to us also by logging on to our website on www.igateradio.tv.com. where you access other content of Agate Radio as well. We're available on Radio Garden and on all social media platforms where our content is streaming. You may also download the Agate Radio and TV app from Google Play Store. And this is a one-stop app that avails you the platforms of our television online, the radio, as well as newspaper. That app is also available on Apple Store. A short breather will take here, and once we are back, our discussion begins. Don't go away. Kindly stay with us. Welcome back from that short break. And let me begin with you, Professor Apam. The bill in the House of Representatives seeking to make voting compulsory for all Nigerians of voting age seeks to amend the 2022 Electoral Act. Talk to us. Is this bill timely? Is this particular amendment timely for the country's electoral system?
It is not timely. In fact, there's no need for it. In your introduction, you said something about whether the people even know that voting is part of their civic responsibilities. And that's the first thing that we should be talking about. Do people even know that they're supposed to vote? Do they have a right to vote? So it's not about compelling them to vote. It's about letting them know that they're even supposed to vote in the first place. I've never had that in a democracy. That people will be compelled by law to vote. In any case, in Nigeria, people have always wanted to vote in the past, and they've not had the chance to vote. We've heard about activities of political thugs who would go and remove the materials from the polling units, and people would be even have a chance to vote. So I think it's quite ironic that somebody is now talking about making a law to compel people to vote, when the people have always wanted to vote and have never really had the right to vote in the first place.
Okay, so if citizens are not aware of their civic responsibility, as you mentioned, and if there's a bill seeking to enforce this civic responsibility on their part, would you say it's out of place by the House?
It is out of place.
To consider it.
People knowing they're supposed to vote and having the right to vote are two different things. I mean, rather they're same things as opposed to compelling them to vote. Now, you let people know they're supposed to vote through some voter education, and then through also providing them access to the voting centers for them to vote. Now, like I've said, even those who are supposed to vote and I've always wanted to vote, I've never really had a chance to vote. And so it sounds funny that now you're talking about a law to compel people to vote when they have always wanted to vote, have not even had a chance to vote. Even for those who would know they're supposed to vote and have always gone there to vote. I've talked about times when some political thugs would come remove the electoral materials of the polling units, wouldn't even have a chance to vote. And so why would you then come and say you're making a law that people should come and vote, otherwise they will go to prison for 6 months or pay 100,000? It means perhaps the prisons will be filled up with people because the people wouldn't even have the 100,000 to pay in the first place. And I'm also wondering how they can get to know that people haven't voted. Now we even hear the INEC saying, I think it's still a rumor, I don't know how true is it, that in future people would even vote without voters' cards at elections.
Yes.
And so I wonder how the people who are monitoring would even be able to know that others haven't voted, so that they can take them to court and ask them to pay 100,000 or be sent to prison for 6 months.
All right, now, Dr. Giuseppe,
Yes,
talk to us. Would you say this be to enhance democratic participation and provide a legislative framework for citizens to discharge their civic responsibility to the nation?
Thank you very much, Nat, and I am very happy to be on this platform once again. I'm most happy because I'm even seated with a professor of political science. So the discussion is going to be so robust.
Yes.
Actually, I will begin from a different perspective. When I want to discuss certain things of this nature, I try to link them with what is practiced in other climes of our society. Of course, when you talk about voting and making voting compulsory, I would say that the National Assembly is right in quote anyway. Let me put that in quote.
All right.
In the sense that voting is actually a civic responsibility. It is a right. It is also, a show of patriotism. Of course, making voting compulsory, this is not the first time. If you go back to the history, you discover that places like Belgium, Austria, Switzerland, Australia, and other parts of the country, of the world, have actually attempted to make voting compulsory. The only thing is that they have found it very, very difficult to enforce some sanctions regarding this. So it is actually not a new thing that is being introduced by the National Assembly. So I give them kudos for that. But what I want to let you know is that voting per se is not actually an intrinsic obligation. And so you cannot actually say that somebody, if Nigeria, I describe Nigeria altogether, or even the democratic processes or system in the country, as, having too much of copying. We are more or less copycats. Sometimes we copy things without really knowing the intricacies or the complexities of such things. Nigeria has a lot of things to grapple with, even with regard to electoral processes. So it is actually very, very untimely for legislation of that nature to even be mentioned in the first place, because we are grappling with already very many issues regarding elections and electoral processes. First and foremost, before you vote, you have to register. How many people have registered? How many people even know that they have to register? And you should understand that registration itself is not a compulsory thing. It is something that you have to do voluntarily. If you don't register, then you are not supposed to vote. So if registration for voting is an optional thing, and you're making voting compulsory, you are contradicting the whole issue. Because you don't register, you don't vote. And registration is not an obligatory thing. It is quite untimely and unthinkable that the speaker and his co-colleague have actually introduced this kind of bill at this particular point in time. Of course, I think with time we can go to that level of accepting such a thing, but now, no, it is really not acceptable. It's so quite untimely.
All right. Now, Professor Apam, a part of the debate concerning this bill in the reps yesterday was particularly about low voter turnout. One of the sponsors, the co-sponsor, Daniel Asama, who led the debate, argued that in the last general election, that was the 2023 general election, less than 30% of registered voters participated. Do you think if we have a law which makes it mandatory for voting, it will increase voter participation and turnout at our general elections?
Well, the question is, what to him, and of course to his colleagues, what led to the low voter turnout? They should have thought about that first. Why has there been a low voter turnout? And in any case, even if there was a low voter turnout, were they not elected, and are they not there in the House of Reps and others in the Senate and others in the executive positions? So let's not make a mockery of this whole thing. Let's not make a mockery of it. People are encouraged to vote depending on how responsible those elected are to the people who elected them. That's what encourages people to go and vote. So what you need to get right is, first of all, is to have credible elections. That's the very first thing. Let elections be first and foremost credible. Let people understand that they truly can hold their elected leaders accountable, and that at the next round of elections they can tell them, no, we don't want you again because you didn't do well. That's the first thing to establish. I can't imagine people who benefited from fraudulent elections in the past and sitting there talking about low voter turnouts. I found that strange too at a point, because when I was part of INEC, I was told that a voter turnout of 40% was acceptable. Well, I said this here on this station before. To me, it was strange, because of course, as a teacher, I know that the pass mark is about 50. At least that's a pass mark. Even though 40% can still give an E, but of course, you know that E is a weak pass. And so I was surprised to hear that 40% was acceptable voter turnout. And then increasingly, we were going into voter registration exercise. Now Nigeria has about 92 million voters. I think that's the figure. And then later in the year, the INEC is still going to start another voter registration process, which allows people to, those who weren't registered before, to register, and those who would want to change their voting places to also do that. And so you register more voters, you have 92 million voters in this country, and yet you still have a low voter turnout. And so why has the voter turnout been low? And I will also show that the 92 million people that are said to be the voting population is actually, the true position of figure of voters in this country. I will now also allowing for lots of double and multiple registration. So these are the things you need to look at, basically.
All right. Now, Dr. Yusuf, let me also have your thoughts. In your opinion, will having a legislation to make voting compulsory for all citizens increase voter turnout of registered voters at general elections?
Not in my opening remark, I made mention of some of the things that Nigeria is already grappling with. The democratization process in the country is really, really a mockery of democracy itself. You see, there are some factors that propel people into not turning out for voting. One of the main things is voter apathy. You have to understand what voter apathy is, or let me say, political alienation, voter apathy. People are already disenchanted with the system. Let me take you back to the memory lane. You understand that from the beginning of the electoral or democratization process in the country, there was a sort of appreciable, voter turnout until 2010, 2011 election. There was very low turnout. Then in 2014, Goodluck Jonathan, brought the policy of making, strengthening the voting system by bringing out this permanent voting and BVN. I think it's 2014. So we discovered that in 2014-2015 election, there was quite low voter turnout, quite okay. But people's enthusiasm actually was picked up after that election because of the credibility of that election. Run back or fast forward to 2019, because of the confidence people started compared to 2019 voter turnout and 2023. You notice that there was a problem, and I'm telling you, I want to assure you that in 2027 is going to be worse, because the 2023 election made mockery of the whole process itself. Voter apathy has been developed. A thing that even if you don't vote, the winners must emerge. Voters are not, our voting is not really even. How are you going to redevelop that enthusiasm, that avidity, that how do I say the patriotism in the electorates with regards to election? I think National Orientation Agency is part of the agencies that has to take care of that. Not just take care of that by making press releases or talking on televisions, but particularizing it by way of even our leaders. How do our leaders, who we actually go and suffer under the sun to vote, how do they perform at the end of the day? These are the people that sometimes you vote them and they leave you. They leave the electorates. They go to Abuja, start embezzling money for themselves and their families, and even share it with their cronies, leaving the electorates pauperized, more and more pauperized. That is a problem we should be talking about. It is not the question of compelling people to vote. What is even the gain in that voting in the first place? Let it be practical. Let people understand that yes, there is actually patriotism is not forced. People are patriotic because they want to even die for the country. Die for the country means that you can do anything. You can do anything to make sure that everything works well. But a lot of Nigerians, let me tell you that about 80% of Nigerians have lost that patriotism. They have lost it. So voting is part of patriotism. Yeah. How have you tried to bring back that patriotic spirit in the electorates? That is what we should be talking about. So let's say that there are a lot of intricacies, complexities surrounding our democratization process. That is what we should be on the front burner, and not this vacuous form of legislation that will end up, being ineffective and ineffectual.
You're talking about the last general election. You were a candidate for House of Representatives.
I was contesting, and I was really prepared for that election. Yeah. I was prepared for that election, and I actually knew exactly what I was legislations at the National Assembly. I would have actually opted for those. So I don't know whether the Nigerian system would have allowed me. Maybe by now I would have been dead.
Anyway, not at all.
Because I know that I'm a voice against such things.
The next cycle, the general election is coming. Maybe you can't pay us big money so protect you for 2027. Now, Professor Apam, you are a political scientist, and you've been a part of the electoral umpire body. Talk to us more about the factors that have given rise to low voter turnout.
Yeah, that's the very first one. You even talked about it yourself. The fact that people have lost confidence in the system. And he also talked about the fact that patriotism is not forced. Of course, it's not forced. It's developed over time by kind of things leaders do, and the way the government and people elected are responsive to the needs of the people. That's how these things come about. And so, because, let me even get back to the first point about the fact that the system is not credible, the electoral system is not credible. And so, if people feel that even when you go to vote, the outcomes won't truly reflect how people voted, then of course they feel there's no need to go and vote at the next round of elections. Look at what happens with all government elections, for example. You never hear, sometimes on election day, you never really will see people voting anywhere, and yet somebody's announced as a local government chairman. And so why would then people care about going to vote in
the first place?
And so you come round and try to make a mockery of it by telling us that you're going to make a law that compels people to go and vote, otherwise they go to prison. People have always wanted to vote. They've not even had the time and the opportunities to vote in the first place. So those are the things that would make people not to want to go and vote at any election. And then another point he also talked, my colleague Dr. Yusuf talked about, is that even people who are elected are never really truly responsive to the needs of the people. I remember in the past, the National Assembly during Galinaba even had an agenda for 4 years when they talked about how they wanted the country to achieve and what the country should be at the end of those 4 years. I've never had the current National Assembly do that. I haven't had the Tajuddin Abbas say anything like that. And then at the same time, Tajuddin Abbas comes around to make a mockery of the fact that people's rights have been taken away from them by saying you want to compel people to go, otherwise they go to prison. Well, that's fine. Let's get the places to vote in the first place. And let the votes actually count. And that's the only way you can truly say that practicing democracy.
All right. Now, let's look at Dr. Guse. Let's look at the opposing voices. And one of the lawmakers who made a strong debate, a strong opposition to this bill on the plenary yesterday, his name is Awaji Inobank Abiante in Rivers State. And he his name is Mark Esset in Akwa Ibom. And of course, Awaji, they joined voices together. Listen to Esset, I'm quoting him. We are trying to put something on nothing. When citizens have lost confidence in voting, there is a lot of work to be done. If we make a law to make voting compulsory, we should make another law to make the votes count. Now, adding his voice, Abiante said, I agree that every adult man and woman should participate in deciding their leaders. But there are certain questions we need to ask. What are the incentives to make them go out and vote? Have they been assured of their security? We are talking of a country where the name like Mike Tyson is still on the voter register. Do we have an authentic voter register? If you make voting compulsory, there are Nigerians in Ghana, the United States, and everywhere. How do you bring them back to vote? End of quote. Dr. Gise, let's reflect on these debates by these two lawmakers in the context of the current realities. The voter register they talked about. Do we have an authentic voter register? Do we need to make another law to make the votes of Nigerians count when they are compelled to vote?
Nathaniel, you see, if I were at the National Assembly, this were the people I would have been working with. Because that is a true reflection of how Nigerians should be reasoning. You see, I earlier said that we have many other, intricacies surrounding the whole process. First and foremost, the voter register is not, more or less, not authentic. Let's say that it is authentic. Let's say that it's authentic, but go to the north, for example. We have people registered in the north that contains names of people who are even less than 10 years or non-existent names. How are you going to account for that, for those things? That is one. Secondly, if you go to other areas like in Bayelsa or other riverine areas, during elections, there is really no way. There is no way for some electors to even go to the polling units because of the topography of their area. How are you going to take care of that? Or how are they taking care of such situations? People, I think, was it the last election or the election before the last, in a bid to vote, I think a boat capsized and all the electors died. How were the families compensated? How do you think such families would be so enthusiastic to come out and vote again? And then, let me still add my voice to the voices of those two gentlemen. You are talking of something, building something on nothing. First and foremost, try as much as possible to develop some confidence by even sanctioning those people who are responsible for the voter apathy. And who are those people? They're the politicians themselves, the electoral empire. They are the ones. Yesterday, I think it was, I don't know whether it was a skit or anything. This guy of, I just want to give you, allude to something.
Yes.
This guy of defection from other parties to APC. To other political parties, but especially APC. Especially APC. They are eventually going to APC, not just this. Yesterday, somebody asked the national chairman of APC, Alhaji Omar Ganduje, his opinion about this day of defection, that you're actually trying to lead Nigeria into a monolithic system or a one-party system.
Yes.
He said he quickly gave an example of China, that in China they practice a one-party system, but the country is faring very well. In fact, the country is really succeeding in all facets of life. So the person quickly asked Ganduje, but the same China you are talking about, when corrupt people are found, or when people are found corrupt, they are executed. You kill them. So now, will you say that, okay, now, because China has succeeded in the one-party system, then we should practice it here, but we should just practice the one-party system without following to the letter what China is doing? That is one of the problems Nigeria has. That look at one aspect but fail to get the other aspects. I earlier told you that compulsory voting is not a new thing. As I'm talking to you, it is practiced in Belgium. It is practiced in Switzerland. On a very strict note, it is practiced in Australia. It is practiced in Austria. Do some research, I will understand that these are the things that are happening. But you don't just look at them at the superficial level. What are the other things that have actually been put in place to ensure that people actually have confidence in the system, and they also look at the dangers of not voting? That is one thing. Other countries like Netherlands, for example, actually started this even from the 19th century, if we do some research, but they stopped it. Has the National Assembly cared to look at some of the intricacies of some of the problems He had met some countries out there to begin this voting, compulsory voting, and then stop along the way. It is something that is not easy. Just as I told you, voting itself is not an intrinsic obligation. It is not. How are you even going to look for those people who have not voted when they are not even found? I completely agree with those two gentlemen. They have a very sound argument. And I think if Nigerians are reasoning well, if our leaders are reasoning well, these are the kind of voices they should be listening to, rather than wasting our time. Many of them are rather than wasting our time. Let me tell you something. We have some people who are just so, I don't want to cast any aspersion on my leaders, but we have some people who actually are bereft of the knowledge. They are bereft of that cognitive resources, to handle the kind of responsibility that is, given to them. In a bid to simply make people understand that they are also working. These are the kind of bills you can be seeing. Very vacuous, very jejune. Things that are really not really supposed to be discussed on the floor of the assembly. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
These are the things. Nigerians are joking. The leaders are joking with us. Many things are happening. Economic depression, economic strangulation. People are being strangulated. What have they done in that aspect?
People are being killed.
People are being killed. Our mothers are being raped. Our wives, our children. How are they doing this thing? In order to make sure that the country comes back to the path of glory. These are the problems.
All right. Now, Prof, let's look at the area of the authentic register. Why is it that we seem not to have authentic register as argued by these lawmakers?
Every time the INEC conducts the voter registration exercise, they claim that they're cleaning the registers. That's what it is used. They say they're cleaning the registers to make sure that people who've done double or multiple registrations names are taken out, so that maybe only one. But I'm not too sure that has been effective over time, or perhaps it's not even done sometimes. And so you then have a register that has more than one, sometimes more than one name. And of course, like you said, I'm not afraid to say that it's particularly in the northern part of the country that you have that kind of thing. And there was a process of creating additional polling units where they say they would transfer some voters to new units. And then it ended up that those two other units didn't even have voters in them. So that also is there. And like you just said, those are the things that we need to look at basically. First of all, let's have a register that is authentic. That's the work of the INEC. And then let the INEC be allowed or be told in categorical terms that they should have a clean voters register. That's the first thing. That's where to start. And that's the only time we can know the exact number of voters. And then I have a feeling, I'm sorry to be saying this, but of course I have to say it, that when you say you have 44% voter turnout, it then means that could actually be the figure in relation to the actual number of registered voters. Because when you say you have 92 million registered voters and then the figure is not really 92 million, and then you go to the polls, and then at the end you come out with 40% or 44% voter turnout, then it means the actual figure was not even 92 million in the first place. So as much as we talk about. You understand what I'm saying?
Very well.
And that it may not even be as much as we're talking about. There probably hasn't even been that kind of large-scale voter apathy. The problem then lies in the kind of the figures that we brandish as the number of registered voters in this country. So that's what needs to be worked on. The voter register in the first place, INEC needs to work on that. Clean it, make sure there are only one registered, everybody just registered only once. And then you also don't have underage voters. When the underage voters are not also able to vote, and when the double people who registered more than once are not also able to vote in more than one place, then you probably would come to a figure of just about 40% or 44% as the Volens had. And then perhaps that's what people, then to those who know, would then come out to say that 44% or 40% is still acceptable, knowing fully well that the figures we brandish as 92 million is not the actual number of registered voters in this country. And then we're going into it again. By later in the year, they're going to start the voter registration process. More names will come into the register. Those who have died the names will still be there. And then that will only add to that. And then unfortunately, there are other things by adding more names is some kind of achievement where we are registering Nigerians to vote. And so the more the figure, then somebody counts it as an achievement that we have more people registered to vote when they're actually not the people who are supposed to vote at any given election. So those are the kind of things that anybody worrying about the voter turnout should have thought about in the first place instead of saying you're going to make a law. It's just a mockery, just like my colleague Ton. I think it's vehement, and I like his vehemence, and perhaps coming from his
as from someone who lost election.
Not only that,
Okay.
also coming from a background of somebody who's in linguistics. He has used several words to describe what I think I like his choice of words too.
I was thinking his name is stemming from the fact that I can't control in his aspiration not to be in the house. That's by the way. Now, Prof, this law, as you mentioned, the bill, the part of the debate is that it seeks to empower the Independent National Electoral Commission to develop systems for tracking voter compliance and managing exemption requests without infringing on fundamental human rights. Is it possible to get INEC to monitor voter compliance as a business?
You're only speaking English language.
Yes, English.
Simply speaking English language. People who talk about that, just like you say, there's no seriousness in it. You know, first, like I said, they don't even have a legislative agenda. So somebody walks up one day and excites himself by making such proposals, and then speaking English language that they're speaking. So what does it mean to have a system in place that tracks people who haven't gone to vote? How? You just say, well, INEC should do that. And then you also don't enable INEC to do other things that it should really be doing. You also go and make the INEC's work difficult. When you send talks to go and snatch INEC materials, and then you have figures written for you to go and sit in Abuja and be collecting 1 billion every quarter in the name of constituency funds. You know, that's what is happening now. And like he said, in fact, I was thinking we'll eventually go to that too. He said they are simply enjoying themselves. Recently we heard about the fact that, in fact, we have to bring this in because this is all part of what we should be discussing anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had recently, even the member of the House also said since they withdraw of fuel subsidy, their government has had so much money they're giving the members of the House of Reps about 1 billion every quarter, and then the senators about 2 billion every quarter, from around 200 million. And so you can just imagine that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then others are dying of poverty. Others are being killed. The armed forces very poorly equipped. They can't cope with what is happening in this country anymore. And so that doesn't concern anyone, except to say you're going to go and make a law to compel the people to go and vote. And then funnily, you also say how many people can even pay? Those who can't even go to vote, or who have developed some kind of apathy, don't even have the 100,000 to go and pay as a fine. That's why I'm also imagining that probably also need to build more prisons, or make them more overcrowded as they are.
In fact, prison warehouses. Prisoners warehouse.
All right, dear listener, if you are just tuning in, you are listening to Perspectives on Agate Radio 95.5 Star FM Makudi. We are discussing the House of Representatives bill seeking to make voting compulsory for all Nigerians. The bill scaled through second reading, and it has been referred to the Committee on Legislative Matters for further legislative action, and we are analyzing it here. We'd like to also hear your opinion, and later at 10 o'clock we avail you the line for you to call in. Already the line is available, and at 10 we'll open it for you to phone in 0814-335-9292. We'd like to hear your inputs on the subject matter too. The line again is 0814-335-9292. Meanwhile, the SMS line is already activated. You may send an SMS to 0912-699-9404. The number again is 0912-699-9404. It's available on WhatsApp as well. And please remember to include your full name and location once you are sending your messaging. Now, Dr. Giuse,
Yes.
let's talk about the possibility of getting these citizens compliant where they fail. The compliance, part of it is 6 months jail term. I mean, 6 month jail term, 100,000 naira fine. Yeah, for those who may not comply with the law. Is it possible to effect that on the citizens?
It is really not possible. She's not in here. You see, I'm not a political scientist, but I'm a researcher. And sometimes I like researching on very broad issues, just to have that what we call an encyclopedic knowledge. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In my own little way of understanding, I know that it is not every legislation or law that is accompanied with some sanctions. If you do some research, you understand that all over the world, it is not every law that is accompanied by some sanctions. Some laws are simply enacted just to ensure that there is government commitment to certain things. I feel this should be part of that. It wouldn't have even been accompanied by those irrelevant sanctions. A lot of things are happening. I made mention of something. Today, as we speak, in Tivland, families can barely feed because we are mostly an agrarian people. Our farmlands have been overtaken by the herdsmen. We are living practically in IDP camps. These people are registered voters. We have people who, on the day of the election, cannot even make an attempt to go to their villages or to go to their polling units because the insecurity has actually ravaged those areas. These are the things that our leaders should be talking about. How are you going to make this land safe for the citizenry? Citizens can barely go to farm. In Benue State, in T particularly,
They've been displaced from their homes.
From their homes. The little food they do, the little crops they farm, the subsistent farming is zero now. They cannot raise anything from there. Hunger has set as a result of insecurity. When you sleep in your house, you cannot even sleep with your two eyes closed because you are thinking of the next moment. Are you going to survive the next moment? This is what should be preoccupying the minds of our leaders, and not bills that do not stand on anything. Make the land safe. Make the land safe. It's not everybody. As a matter of fact, the 100,000 that I'm talking about there, we have people in Nigeria who cannot even afford 50,000 throughout the year. If you are saying that those people should go to prison or pay 100,000, how are they going to even get 100,000 naira? But I am very, very angry about this legislation and the mockery these people are making of our democracy. Look, I'm sure you remember the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring of the North Africa and the entire Middle East. Do you know the things that propelled the youths or the citizens of these countries into revolutions, into protests, violent protests? These are the kind of things. These are the kind of things. You deliberately make sure that you don't follow the pro-people policies, and then you bring some of the things to really compound the situation, making a mockery of that situation. It is very unacceptable. Very, very unacceptable. I think this should be thrown to the dustbin.
It's all right. Now, Prof, in terms of integrity of our electoral system and rekindling the confidence of the citizens so as to discourage voter apathy, what can be done, especially on the part of INEC?
It is the work of INEC, just like you've said. First of all, like you've said, the first thing is to ensure that only those who are eligible to vote are registered to vote. Only those who are eligible in terms of the age and other requirements. And then the voters' process should be cleaned up. And then security providing for people to go out to electoral, to polling units and vote on election day. That's a work that the INEC has always wanted to do over time. And then, of course, without the support from the same political leaders who talk about compelling people to go and vote. And so the INEC needs that support to be able to do these things so that people can then go and vote on election day. And then the votes should also count. Votes should also count so the people know that they can truly hold their elected leaders accountable at any time, at any round of election. So those are the things that the National Assembly should be looking at, trying to support the INEC as much as possible. And of course, searching their own consciences to ensure that they allow the process to flow as it should flow. The INEC is capable of doing quite a number of things, and virtually everything. In other places, in other clients, like America, the election is a very serious business because they don't only elect leaders on election day. They do a lot of other things. In fact, it's just like a referendum on quite a number of issues. Because on election day in America, typical election day in America, they would even elect judges. They would elect the mayors, and they elect so many other people. Yeah. When you get a ballot paper, you have so many things to do on election day. We don't hear about those other things, but that's what they do. So election should be much more serious business, and the INEC should be allowed to do his work with enough support from those in power. You don't need to go and start making elections part of the Electoral Act. You say part of the Electoral Act should be to compel people to go and vote. That shouldn't even come to the Electoral Act. That's not the work of INEC. INEC is supposed to create a conducive environment for people to vote and not to force them to vote. Once you do these things, people will naturally come out to vote on election day. In places like he talked about, the number of countries where they said voting has been made compulsory. I'm not too sure it's actually made compulsory. But of course, people would naturally want to go and vote when the people in power are doing the kind of things they want. And others will also want to go and vote out those who would not have done the kind of things they want. So these things naturally prepare people. What the people in power do naturally would encourage people to go and vote, either to keep those people who have done those things in power or to take them out of power. So these things come naturally, depending on what the people in power have been doing over time. And you don't even need to force people to go and vote.
All right. Now, Dr. Kuse, let me also have you weigh in on what you think can be done on the part of both the politicians and INEC to rekindle voter confidence.
Just as
current voter party.
Just as Prof. rightly said, they should check their consciences, check themselves. First and foremost, INEC should be seen as a very unbiased agency. Are they really unbiased? What is the role of some of the personnel, the INEC personnel, that actually aid and abet stealing of votes? What do these politicians themselves do? Let me tell you that there are politicians that sometimes bring INEC in their houses, give them 1,000 names to go and register when they need biometrics. They don't. Go and check. We have people whose INEC voter cards are there without them even knowing the INEC office. Politicians are behind all those things. These are the things that we're aware of. These are the things the electors are aware of. First and foremost, the politicians themselves should understand that they have a very, very big role to play. And of course, what should preoccupy the National Assembly now is, you can actually enact a law that will make electors, have very serious interest in voting without necessarily coercing them. For example, make a law and start executing corrupt INEC officials or corrupt politicians. Can that be done in the first place in Nigeria? Make a law and, impose serious sanctions on INEC staff, INEC officials that aid this electoral fraudulence. Yesterday, for example, I was reading one on the pages of newspaper that one professor from, I think, University of Calabar, who assisted the Senate president to win the election of 2019.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, no, it is not. It is no longer alleged. It has been proven in court that he is sanctioned.
Yes,
he has actually been. He's actually been sent to prison. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you something. This professor is actually very free, roaming the streets. Because I met the Senate president, who is a very powerful man in the society, is there for him. Where is it done that a court of law convicts somebody and the person is still moving about freely? These are kind of things that, make people grow more and more, apathy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Very well.
There should be serious sanctions, and they should be seen to be following those things to the letter. Naturally, people will grow that enthusiasm, they will grow that enthusiasm, that avidity, they will grow that patriotic spirit again to do things without being coerced into doing such things.
All right, and that's the interest of the country, because we love citizens to exercise their civic responsibility. Dear listener, we'll take a short breather, and when we are back, we'll start engaging with you. Kindly stay with us. Compulsory for all Nigerians, which has already secured a second reading and has been referred to the House Committee on Electoral Matters for further legislative action. Leading the conversation here in the studio, I have with me former resident electoral commissioner of INEC in Kogi State, a former head of department political science at the former Benue State University, now Reverend Father Moses Oshuadaso University, Professor James Apan, and a former Labour Party House of Representatives candidate for Vatican Constitutional Federal Constituency in the 2023 general election, Dr. Gamane Yuse. He is also a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Linguistics at that same university and a public affairs commentator. To participate on this program, call in on the number 0814-335-9292. The line again is 0814-335-9292. Once you are connected to the studio, we would like to know your full name and where you are calling from. Then you go ahead and make your submission. Please keep it brief. The SMS line is also available, and it is 0912-699-9404. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Good morning, Nathaniel.
Have you joined us, sir?
Thank you, Matthew Nyan from Melbourne.
Thank you, sir.
I salute the panelists, the staff and the doc. On the lighter mode, Prof and Doc is the academia that go out there to declare winners of the election. That means the heating engineers, those that feed charcoal into furnace to keep it burning. Well, when you see that people are living in squalor places, I think their minds should be geared toward that. This is the second year of their leadership at the National Assembly. We have just 2 years for election. Do they know whether elections we hold due to the banditry and terrorists all around? In Makadi here, they're always terrorizing us. Who knows whether the INEC headquarters is itself? For them to look at the consequences of what is going on, they are going to force, when you don't motivate, even your wife, if you don't motivate her, she won't turn to your side. She won't. It's better for them to motivate the electorate so that they'll move them to go there and vote. Now you are talking about a professor sanction. A professor was sanctioned for rigging election, and the person that they rigged election for is there at the National Assembly. So when you compare the two of these, where are Nigerians going? What are they thinking of? It is better for them to do what will please our minds, give us the protection we desire, and then ensure that the electorate are benefiting from them. Not we hearing the good things that they are talking or doing for their families and themselves. Nobody is jealous about what they're getting. But then the responsibility of the people elected on the people who elected them should be there for us. If those things are not there, we are talking about forcing somebody to go and vote. Why are you not forcing the bandits to leave so that we enjoy the freedom and then go out to vote freely? What by the time you go to vote at the polling unit and then they come to ransack your house? They should be thinking about that thing. And I earlier suggested that they should move the soldiers back to the barrack, empower the police to relate with the communities, to protect their places. This is where they should be going. I'm not talking about forcing people to go out and vote for them. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your submission. Thank you for calling in, sir.
Very.
All right. Thank you for your position. 0814-335-9292. Let's look at it from your point of view, what you make of the bill. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Thank you. This is Comrade Dan Agbo from Mobile Park.
Thank you, Dan Agbo, for joining us.
Thank you. Actually, I'm just joining the program from what you just read. I was watching the plenary a few days back, and I was just laughing. You know, the issue is that we have serious issue that is confronting Nigeria right now. And instead of the House of Rep to move into action, I think they are just using this to divert the masses' attention from the real issue that is fighting Nigeria. So on my part, where are you going to vote when your environment is not conducive for you? You are going to vote and your life is at stake. How do you vote? So I want the House of Rep to go back to the drawing board and do the needful, because from their own side they have an oversight function to perform, to hold the president to ransom. So they should take a move. They should move a motion to compare the president, that is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, you know, to use his prerogative to mandate the security personnel to the hinterland where the life and property of people are not secure. Not coming to compel people to vote. Who are you compelling to vote? Is voting a compulsory? When I vote and my vote will not count, and I am seeing a situation where a professor, a student will be trained by a professor, and that student will go to the field. The student will conduct a credible election from the field. He will bring the result. At the end of the day, the professor who trained that student will turn the result in favor of the politician that put the person there. Now, the professor has been sanctioned, and the person that he rigged election in favor, and the person is there presiding over the National Assembly, and you expect people to take such people to be serious. I don't want to go into detail this morning, but the truth is that the House of Rep should use their power to compel the executive to go into action and secure the life and property of
Program. Well, it does appear electors, Nigerians want to vote, but they want their security first before they should pay.
Yeah.
But hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Good morning, Mr. Matt.
Good morning to you.
Asoguni Dogara is my name. I'm calling from North Bank.
Sogoni, welcome.
Good morning to the guests in the studio. One of them was once my lecturer at the BSc. In my own part, I will align my voice with the two lawmakers who oppose this bill. In fact, if not because I'm on radio, I would have said it's a misplaced priority. There are issues at hand.
Sogoni, are you there? Oh, we lost connection with Sogoni. Quite unfortunate.
Okay, it's no more radio now.
That's all right.
Maybe we send it elsewhere.
Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, this is Noah calling from Imakodi, Boko Road.
Noah, go ahead.
The topic, it's a very important one. When I heard about
Hello?
Hello, good
Hello?
morning.
Yes, good morning.
Again, we have the glitch. 0814-335-9292 is the line and is available. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Mr. Nathan,
Good morning.
good morning. This is Solomon Peke from Uday in Gumaloka government area.
Thank you, Solomon.
It's been long.
To have you join us, Solomon. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. In fact, it sounds so funny as I joined this program from the beginning. And in fact, the first caller, Honorable Martin Yan, has picked my mind. But as a human being, I have to contribute my quota. You see, comparing people to vote is nothing. They are just mocking the electorate. Because what we're talking about comparing people to vote, you compare them. Where are they starting to vote? As I speak to you, Natalia.
Solomon, you are on. Go ahead.
Yes, as I speak to you right now, and I'm in a great town with no security. We have just 3 soldiers. The security that are supposed to be posted in all those areas in Benue, and Yobe is left out with today and Yerwata. So where are we going to vote? And the time of voting now, if you ask people that carry those voting materials to compare, we get people to vote. Because we are not part of Nigeria. So if we are part of Nigeria, we should be considered. So that is my cry this morning. So even if we vote, our vote will not be counted. Somebody who is the best loser, just like in football, will emerge winner. So are they doing the right thing? The needful is not done. So they are just making insult to themselves.
We appreciate you. Thanks for your opinion. We welcome it, but don't bring uncomplimentary remarks into it. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. My name is Theophilus again from Ipiangu, where is local government.
Welcome, Theophilus.
Yes. I want to appreciate the Assembly so far for the good work they have been doing there, especially by amending various sections in the Nigerian Constitution. But however, I want to say that the bill that they are about to pass into law now, it is untimely and it is not acceptable. Because if eventually passed into law at the moment, it will make a lot of Nigerians migrate for fear of being punished for voting offenses. So I want to urge them to go back to the drawing board and seek for more orientation, to task the National Orientation Agency precisely to do the needful by giving out the orientation to people, as well as a conduct town hall meeting to get more input before it can finally pass into law, if possible. If that is done, I believe all will enjoy it and it will be timely. Thank you.
Thank you, Theophilus. We appreciate you for calling in. Well, I'm sure that bill should go through public hearing, if at all it should. But let's consider that perspective is a public hearing we're having for your Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. This is Adju Abana calling from opposite. Comparing Nigerians to vote or making it compulsory for them to vote, in addition to not counting their vote, is not just a mockery, but it undermines the fundamental human rights of Nigerians. So there are much we need to do. So I'm calling on our National Assembly to do the needful in order to ensure that Nigerians are comfortable with the country, and there are some things that we don't really need to be compelled to do. We do them naturally. If at all we have a safe environment and our votes are being counted, we see the need to go and vote, even if we have not been compelled. So I do not see the need for Senate to compel Nigerians to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Azwavane, for your position. No need to compel Nigerians to vote. They should do it as a mark of patriotism willingly. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
You speak with Utswa Isaac from Goma. Tejume.
To have you, Utwa.
May I go on?
Kindly, please.
All right. I am of the opinion that the law should seek to allow Nigerians vote with their voters card wherever they are, because of our right to vote and be voted for. Nevertheless, chances should be given for updates and making of new voters cards for those within the age of 18 years. This will be simply because to enhance performance in the democratic process. May we have security. Thank you, sir.
Good, so I thank you for your position. Thanks for calling in. 0814-335-9292. If you're not able to connect to the call line, send us an SMS to 0912-699-9404. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Morning, sir.
Welcome.
My name is Ilya from Mobile Barak at the Kisa.
Ilya, I didn't get the other name.
Ilya, sir.
Nuhu Ilya.
The Mobile Barak, from Mobile Barak, sir.
Okay, Nuhu, go ahead.
Yes, the program is very interesting, sir. I want to bring an observation. The observation I want to bring is that the House of Rep, they should bring us something which will make us to see with our two eyes, not to force somebody to go and vote. Vote is something, voluntary something which you want to vote. It's not compulsory, because the Nigeria are doing whatever they want. You vote for somebody, at the end of the day, they take it and give it to a different person. How can you have them pay to go and vote? The vote election we know is not the type of election we know now. When you look example from the chairman election, there are so when you go to vote now, at the end of the day, you will not see anybody there. They will say that the election has finished. Automatically, the election is. Let us go back to two-party system. It will be better. So that even though they are going to give you when you phone him now, the party you want, you phone him there and then they count the number. Everybody will go to his house. It will be better. That's all my suggestion, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your suggestion. We appreciate you. Well, anyway, when you listen to the opinions of citizens, you know where they stand on issues.
Exactly.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How is everything generally?
Know your name and where you are calling from. Are you aware of the program you are calling on?
I'm aware of the program already. I'm with you people. I'm Mr. Steven, Plan Mother Market.
Steve, go ahead.
Well, you are talking of National Assembly trying to force people to vote, and they have not considered the insecurity that is going on, spreading the whole country. People are running for their dear lives, for safety, and during the process of even voting, you are willing to go and vote in your polling unit. And during that process, bad people will come and erupt the whole election and shooting up and down, and people will still running for their own dear life. Then what is the essence of them forcing people to go and vote? There is no need them making that deal to say they want to force citizens of this country to go and vote compulsory. It's unbelievable, because they have to talk of insecurity first, the safety of people, the people in this country, because people are dying on daily basis. So there's no need for them to come out and say that bill is going to be compulsory for people to go and vote. What is the meaning of that? Because the life of people is the most important thing before any voting. Even if you vote, you do not vote. The votes, are they counting the votes? If you put in it, you vote. After the voting, then for them to count the result, for you to know who is winning, they will be using trickish way of politics to do that. The result is not going to be counted there, moving up and down, and your own, you don't have any faith, no hope, or the opinion that you voted, the person you voted for is well winning or is well losing. You don't have any hope. So what is the essence of them saying that they want to enact a law to force the citizens of this country to go and vote compulsory? Is unbelievable. So let them think about the security and the safety of the people of this country. Thank you, and God bless you.
Meru, thank you for calling in. We appreciate you for your submission. They should think of security and safety of the electorate first, and they will be encouraged to vote. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Nathaniel.
Thank you for joining us.
My regards to Jess in the studio.
Yes, I am that spokesperson here. Yeah. All right, let's know your name.
Sometimes...
Know your name first of all and where you're calling.
Okay, my name is Justin Omili. I'm calling from opposite Asura Center.
Okay, Justin. That's in Casio, right?
Yes. You know, sometimes I feel it's laughable. I feel shocked to the bones of my marrow when I hear the House of Reps coming up with policies that does not hold water, that cannot have bearing on the life of Nigerians. Apart from the issue of insecurity, the issue of even development, most of these parliamentarians are not really up to their responsibility. They are not impacting positively. Most of them are not even impacting positively on their constituencies. How many times have they come back to say, let us interact with our constituents to know what are their desires, what are their needs, what are their wants? How many times have they come see there's this issue going on in National Assembly? What is your input? What is your take, my people? What is the position? I want to hear from you people. It has never been done. Most of these parliamentarians don't even know why they are representing the people. So they should forget about all these bills, all these laws that don't have any bearing on the life of the people. It is my right to vote. If I wish, I will not vote. Compelling me to vote, I think, is a violation of my constitutional right. It has never happened anywhere. In popular democracies, I have never seen where the electorate have been forced to vote. So this bill should not see the light of the day. Even if it does, Nigerians are not going to comply with it. You cannot force me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin Omili. Anyway, but if it becomes a law here on Agate Radio as a responsible and corporate institution, we encourage citizens to comply with the law. And we also a law-abiding institution. So let's not preempt that it should not be complied with when it becomes a law. If eventually it becomes a law, yes, we should comply with it. Hello, good morning. Oh, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Nathaniel.
Hello, you are on. Speak to us.
I'm going to the studio. I am Takuruku and Matunga. Other people call me Igio Oena. I'm calling from Abeti
Let's always encourage that you tell us your name and avoid the AKA or other people. The aliases are not necessary for us.
Yes, I'll go for EGA now.
Go ahead.
Hello. It's all right. It is not welcome. That bill is not welcome. Let them mandate the government to implement local government autonomy. Let them mandate the government to pay attention to education and security. Let them mandate for that. Mandating for voting is not compulsory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Mandatory voting shouldn't be an issue. Education and other aspects should be given attention. But that's okay. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Bill Musa calling from London.
Hello, Musa, good to have you here.
So my own opinion is just let them make their own work in that house compulsory first before because their work, the work they are doing there is not the work they're supposed to do. So what we want them to go and do, let them make the deal to make their work be compulsory.
Okay, Jude.
Thank you. I salute your guest. You see, this issue is like a slap in the face on Nigerians. You see, we are not reaping the dividends of democracy. That is number one. Our elected officials are not coming back to brief us on what is going on at the state, at the National Assembly. That is number two. 3, insecurity. If you are not safe, how can you go out to vote? There is general poverty in the land. People are so poor that they are living from hand to mouth in terms of feeding. Thirdly, I don't have a voter's card. They really are not fair-fetched. The last election that took place, INEC came up horribly and said those that don't have voter's card or who want to transfer their voter's card to vote in other places or the president should come out and get theirs. I wait. The duration was very short. So how many Nigerians have voter's card? That is the question. It's not every a person that turn up 18 have voter's card to vote, like as I speak. So INEC should be coming up maybe every 2 years or a year for people who turn up 18 to vote, to have their voter's card so that they can participate on election day. I think like this. Thank you.
Jude, thank you. I appreciate you. But to be fair to INEC as an institution, there's what they do called continuous voter registration.
Yes.
So, and it is almost year they are not. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Perspectives.
Good morning, Matano. I'm your guest in the studio.
Thank you.
This is Friday Ugbodo calling from International Market.
Friday, go ahead.
It is a very welcome development to rally around the citizenry as regards to participation in election. It's a welcome development. The submission there is to compel people using the acts and making it a criminal matter is out of the issue. We expect, like one of your guests has said in the studio, they should use the National Orientation Agency and other agencies responsible, using media like Agate Radio and other ones, to communicate, convince, persuade, using time criers, opinion leaders and politicians themselves, to be able to rally people to participate in an election. As regards to people participating, I hear other opinions like people are not participating because the elections are not credible. INEC cannot make an election credible. It is the politicians who participate in these elections that make sure that INEC does not conduct a free and fair elections. It has nothing to do, INEC can only do what is given unto them. I expect them to do more. Let them encourage people to vote, but criminalizing the acts and making it mandatory. It is a civic right of every citizen in this country to participate in an election.
And I believe that the House of Reps and the Senate should also come back to convince their people, campaign like they do during elections to sensitize people about the importance of voting in an election. I think if that is done, it will encourage mass participation in an elections. I don't think the idea is wrong, but the actions that follows the idea might be wrong. This is my submission this morning. Thank you, Nigerians, and God bless Nigerians.
Thank you, Friday. God bless you too. Thanks for calling in. Let's pause the calls temporarily, take some messages, and then we'll continue with our discussion. Good morning, presenter, with your guests. The House of Reps should rather pass a bill that makes it mandatory for all election candidates to participate in widely broadcast debates that will help voters to know the better choice to choose during elections. This one they have started simply sounds funny. Joe Kennedy from International Market in Makurdi. All right, Joe, we appreciate your opinion. Good morning. The National Assembly should first of all make a law to compare elected leaders to fulfill all their campaign promises. With that, we will welcome it. Simon Kyobo from Naka. Thanks. Okay. Simon Kyobo wants a law to compare elected officials to fulfill their promises.
Yes. This it.
Good morning, Natania, your guest in the studio. My name is Igbe. My name is Gbe Kingsley from Way West. I think voting not going to be compulsory because if I vote, I will no longer have access to my home to take a look at what is happening in Way West. 15 councils have been council wards have been displaced early this year. All right, thank you. We sympathize with you, Igbe, for you're being displaced. Thank you. Millions of Nigerians are assailed and exasperated by insecurity, poverty, inflation, etc. Even in the forthcoming 2027 elections, many voters, including here in Benue State, may not be able to access their polling units due to these challenges. Coming at a time like this, the bill is suggestive of gross insensitivity and lack of empathy of a house that has members who ordinarily may not vote.
Brilliant.
But for the fact that they are contestants. My advice to members is for them to concentrate their energies on enacting robust laws that will enhance our security and welfare. Gabriel Onyilo from Ona Occupy Extension in Makurdi. All right, Gabriel, we appreciate your position too. Some of the messages we're able to accommodate. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Perspectives. Okay, that seemed not be meant for this call because the voice coming there is not Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Welcome to Perspectives.
Yes, my name is Andrew Kwasa, calling from International Market. From International Market, Jogakumewe.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I want to first of all agree with the guests in the studio that in fact they have spoken the minds of Nigeria, not me alone. So I want to thank them so much for that contribution. And my own contribution is this. You see, those Nigerians, you see those, how would I call it, those people we vote for, I think they are taking us for granted just because maybe they feel we don't have anything to do after they have been elected, we don't have anything to do to them again. So if you look, the last time they brought up one argument, one bill that they want every elected candidate, their tenure supposed to be for 4 years. They wanted a tenure for them should be 8 years per tenure. We started such, they brought up such ideas and they kick against it. So now they are brought in another one to force Nigeria to compare everybody to vote. So for me, if they ask me of my opinion, I would say a tenure lasts for 4 years. So within that 4 years, they should bring INEC should brought up another election. Within that 4 years, after your 2 years, there should be an election conducted to check your performance. If you don't perform well, they should vote you out. In that way, Nigerians will be compared to vote. In fact, you don't need to tell anybody. We will all go out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew Kwasa.
That's what Americans call
I
mixing.
think the citizens should also initiate their bills and submit them.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, it
Just a
is.
moment, we'll come back. Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good
morning.
Welcome to Perspective.
Good morning.
Talk to us. Hello. Pierre, we lost connection with you. Let's take a few messages and then we'll continue the discussion. We'll accommodate more of the calls later. Good morning, Natania and the guests in the studio. When Benue want a governor to rule, election was not made compulsory, so my submission is that the National Assembly should make a bill seeking for long-lasting peace over insecurity in the country. We'll Kenneth from Kenneth Sute from Coca-Cola, kilometer 5 Boko Road. Okay, thank you, Kenneth, for your message. We appreciate your position. This one says, to maintain my health and sanity, I have decided to add Saturday. Maybe this is one of the steps towards the rumored one-party state. Thereafter, candidates can win election with 99.9% margin. James Amen from Madoka Otupo local government. Okay, James Amen.
Yeah, actually.
All right, we have listened to many of the callers, Prof. Generally, it appears people have interest to vote, but they have issues. They lack confidence in the system. Their security at the moment is important to them. React to some of the submissions made by the callers before we.
I'm happy with the discussion. So beginning from here to what people are sent from us outside, I think it's quite interesting that people are really interested in this matter. We've said it before. We've said it here, and others have said it out there that people elect take us for granted a lot. But interestingly, people still know what their rights are and what the issues are. And I'm happy with the kind of issue, just a simple issue of asking people to vote. Now it has delved into so many other things. Because these things are all related.
Yes.
It's not only about your home. Others have even lost their voters' cards. And they have no way, there's no way they can. In fact, INEC will say it, and the government will say it when they start the continuous voter exercise in June or thereabout. That the INEC will be able to deploy staff to set up some parts of this country. And so let me then see how people can then be registered to even vote in 2027. So those are the issues that are all related. Apathy, of course, is what people in power, even if they're claiming about asking people to go and vote, they don't care about people's voter apathy because somebody will always win anyway, even if only one person goes to vote. So that's not the issue. All these are just window dressing about asking people to go and vote. Somebody will still win anyway, even if only a few people vote. So the issue then would be that the INEC is going to make very difficult because they won't be able to register voters to vote. Those who others have lost their voters' cards, because that's also a time for replacement of lost cards. Somebody talked about Goa West local government. The whole government Nakana is a huge IDP camp. The entire local government people only living in Naka town. And so when will they be able to get back to their places in their homes and register to vote at election? And when they guarantee that with the spread of insecurity that elections will be able to hold even in those places in 2027? Because no attempt is being made to stop this level of killings and displacements. So those issues are all related. And then there must be a lot of sensitivities, like somebody said, for somebody sitting in Abuja comfortably, taking 1 billion naira every quarter, and then asking people, speaking English, just say people should go and vote. The INEC should make it possible for people to register and get, when you can't even enable the INEC to do what you're saying. And then the other point somebody talked about being able to vote any part of the country. I think that's the difficult one, really. I've not heard that anywhere. I think it's difficult for us, but not even in America can people just vote from anywhere. I don't know how to do it quite.
It's actually even a recipe for rigging.
Yes, even a recipe for rigging. People also vote for local elections. So I wonder how you can go and vote just anywhere for somebody who is going to the House of Assembly from your constituency, which your small constituency, your local government. So those issues are actually difficult. But when somebody expresses that kind of opinion, you know how people feel concerned about this country. The fact that the leaders should be responsive and responsible to the people they elect, and the fact that the citizens should actually be in a position to hold leaders accountable.
All right. Now, Dr. Guse, if a bill were to emanate from the submissions made by the callers, what direction do you think such a bill will take for it to go to the National Assembly for consideration concerning the issues of voting and elections in the country?
Yeah, it is actually self-explanatory. And if you look at if you listen to the contributors, the fund contributors, you discover that everything which we're discussing here can be subsumed in one statement. You know, the National Assembly, our leaders, are taking us for granted. I don't know whether it's our docility or our gullibility, but they're taking us for granted.
It's our docility.
Docility and even gullibility. They're taking us for granted. You see, Nathaniel,
yes,
these contributions are very important. You know, that was even why when I was contesting for the House of Representatives seat in my constituency, I wanted to make it a policy that every 3 months I would have a constituency briefing with my people. If our representatives are actually listening to the voices of their constituents, this is actually a summary of what they would have been hearing. They are there for us. My House of Rep member is there for me. If he cannot listen to me, he cannot listen to the voices of the people around his constituents, how is he going to actually present things there that represent the real position of the people? Looking at what these people have said, it is conspicuous that already nobody is actually agreeing with such a bill. And let me tell you something. You mentioned something there. There was a caller that said, if they do that, they will not vote. You know, he said that vehemently.
Yes.
And they were trying to actually safeguard and warn him not to say that, but he said it's a right. And not going to vote is a form of protest. Not going to vote itself is a form of protest. So I agree with him completely. That even if that is not done, even if that is done, they should not go. That is to register their protest.
Well, we don't encourage people to break the law.
Protesting is not breaking the law. Protesting is simply trying to register your resistance.
If it is made lawful that if you don't vote, there are sanctions, we will not encourage people to protest against.
As a matter of fact, even by the mere mention of that, in other countries, they can be protest. They can uprising by mere mentioning that, because we are taking it for granted for too much. For too long.
And like you said, not all laws should come with sanctions.
Not all laws come with sanctions. Do your research and you will see all those things. If it is simply a way of trying to encourage people or to make people understand the position of government with regards to voting, that's a simple thing. It's understandable. But saying that that is going to be followed by sanctions of 6 months imprisonment or 100,000 fine, it is actually an insult to Nigerians. Now, let me tell you something. I vote in Vanica. I vote in Pamo. That is my constituency. Today, fueling my car to Vanica alone is about 107,000 naira. How much is my salary? How do you think people like me will transport themselves to Vanica to go and just vote for leaders that will not even represent them effectively? That's one of these are the things we should be talking about. A lot of things are happening. Nigerians are human. If you see the opinions of people that have just called, you know that Nigerians are human. Nigerians are angry. The things that the leadership condition or the way we are being governed is unacceptable, and that can be subsumed in what these people have said. Let our leaders stop taking us for granted. Let them stop taking us for granted and start legislating on things that will rather bring that will bring good to the nation, rather than bringing things that will still put people under unnecessary hassles.
All right. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, lad. Good morning.
Morning, sir. Welcome to Perspectives.
Yeah, I'm John Aduku. I'm calling from Makodi.
Right, sir. Which part of Makodi are you calling us from, please?
I'm calling from Yakio.
Thank you, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and make your submission.
Yeah. My greetings to the panelists. What we am saying is, it is the National Assembly that are the problem of voting in this country because they don't have a clear idea how INEC should go about the voting. This is a country that somebody went, vote for an election, and you see somebody that is not winning. When you complain, they will tell you, go to court. You see, how many times will somebody go to court? You that they are cheating. If you go to court, you have to take a lawyer. When people are finding something to eat, you carry your money and give to a lawyer to go and talk about INEC in the court. So those things, yeah, is and compelling me to go and vote. It is not possible. You don't compel people to vote. Even in the far away Europe, like America and other countries, you don't force people to vote. In fact, they will even protest that we are not voting because this is what you are doing. But in Nigeria, if you say so that way, they are going to arrest you. We should change our character. We should change our attitude. This is now how to make a country great. Our National Assembly members, as somebody earlier stated, they don't know why they are there. There are serious issues, especially this insecurity. By now, people are not going to the farm. And look at it, it's rainy season. And tomorrow you tell us you want to guarantee food security. How will you guarantee food security when the security itself is not guided by you, the government? I bet you have a lot of things to do. Let us all sacrifice to make this country great, but not the way that this current National Assembly they are going. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks for calling in and your submission. Of course, with our time that is no longer there, that will be the last call we accommodate on the program today. Let's take some messages. Our call patience from Logo One says, amidst the poorer value of the currency, insecurity, and unnecessary change of anthem, they want to add this big joke. They should be ready to give free feeding and shelter in the name of jail term, please. Okay, I call patience. Appreciate your position. Good morning, presenter. I am Olenga Ilo from North Bank in Makudi. I want to advise Mr. Speaker that as a matter of urgency, he should withdraw that decree of a bill and replace it with anti-grazing ranches establishment law. Greetings to the guests in the studio. Okay, Olenga Ilo, thank you for your position. Good morning. In my own thought, you can force anybody to vote, but it is not stated in the law. I am surprised that after suffering under the sun to vote for them, they end up taking everything for themselves. My name is Giri Guto Oliver from Wanone Taka. Okay, Giri, we appreciate your message. Good morning, Mr. Anchor and your guests in the studio. I want to advise the National Assembly that mandatory voting is not our problem, but if they insist to enact the law, they should also enact a law to enforce politicians to fulfill their campaign promise or turn on, say, from OTC in Goma local government area. All right, thank you for their participation through those messages. And Prof, one of the callers also made an issue which touched on the integrity of the INEC, especially the ad hoc officials and even the main officials of INEC on their own part. Good enough, both of you are academics. You mentioned how professors compromise the system. They train students who go as ad hoc staff in the field, bring the result, but the professor is on board, compromising.
Professors can be different from the entire society, and so whatever changes want to bring this country need to be holistic. Professors are simply part of the kind of society that we have.
Rotten.
So if you could use that word. Now, of course, you need to borrow the word from you after you're a linguist. And so, INEC, of course, has been questioned over time. People start questioning from the issue of who appoints whatever. Elsewhere, like in America, even INEC officials are supposed to be elected. In fact, they elect virtually everyone. Even the fire service chief is elected. That's what they do at elections. They elect virtually everybody The fire service chief is elected, the judges are elected, the police commissioners are elected, and all that. And so perhaps we could start looking at how the INEC is going to be constituted in the first place in terms of the independence of, that's what leads to the independence of those candidates. But for now, we have a system that allows the chief executives to, the national chief executive, that's the president, to elect to appoint the INEC officials. And so you probably would have, but I'm not too sure that the president appointing them would necessarily make them not independent and then, of course, to be being biased. We've talked about these things here. What makes the INEC work difficult is not always about the INEC itself, it's about what the politicians out there do. INEC would ordinarily prepare for an election, train electoral staff, both the permanent and ad hoc staff, procure materials, send them out to polling units on election day. And the INEC officials would never go around and say, you rig election for anyone. It's the same politicians who would come around and corrupt those the staff, both the permanent staff as well as the ad hoc staff to fulfill their own ends. So that's why I'm saying the entire thing is a societal problem. And so we need to look at it much more holistically. The professors were also sent to conduct elections, or I mean not even to conduct, to announce election results. Of course, they're not different from the rest of society. Some of them would actually change the results, like somebody said. I don't know how that happened, but of course, when I was there no way a return officer could change the election at the point of return. Perhaps results could be changed or whatever, or manipulated at the polling unit, not what is brought to the collation officer for collation. I told you here at that time about what happened in Kogi State, that some politicians went to a polling unit and corrupted or gave money to an autarch staff, an NYC member, about 50,000 naira. And she brought this money at the point of bringing the results to the collation officer. What I didn't know was whether she actually did what they wanted, but she collected the money quietly. When she brought the results for collation, that's when she handed over the money to the collation officer, which was also a university professor from Ekiti State, and said this is what she was given. And this money came all the way back up to my office in Lokoja. Well, maybe I shouldn't be calling the names of the places, but brought the money to me. That is what happened. And so that's to tell you that even the ad hoc staff and old staff sometimes cannot always be corrupted. Some would actually want to do what they want to do. But of course, sometimes you're also working under threats. You're working under threats that you're forced to do what you wouldn't ordinarily want to do for sake of your own life. And just like this lady collected her money quietly. As to whether she did what the person wanted is something that we couldn't find out, because she wasn't asked to come up herself. But she brought back the money that was given to her. At least she had her conscience intact. So these are the issues. The INEC would always be a reflection of the entire of how society looks, And so when we're talking about INEC or any other person, we should be looking at our own values, our national values, holistically. All right,
Dr. Gise, this will be your parting thoughts. Beyond this how can the House of Representatives or the National Assembly, the lawmakers, ensure that they promote democratic participation, accountability, and electoral integrity? This should be your parting words in 1 minute.
If I have enough time, I would even react a little bit to what Prof said before I would do the same. Well, Prof said something and his statement is trying to exonerate the INEC. I would like to diverge a little bit on that by saying that INEC is one of the very big problems of the society, and it's compromised that sometimes there are also problems. For example, yes, I would say no, that is not it at all. But I would say that INEC as an independent body has some authority to take certain actions. For example, the last elections, they were to transmit results to the IREF. IREF. They transmit results there. How would you reconcile the fact that results have moved from the polling units up to the collection center to the last unit, and you see some mutilations, alterations, and so on and so forth. You still go ahead. We are not talking of criminal breaches here. We have results that were actually downloaded from IREF that were highly mutilated, highly altered.
Anyway,
how would you tell me that INEC will still look at this result and go ahead and announce? We have situations where INEC the INEC chairman or the INEC officials were aware of the fact that some things were actually not done in line with the electoral act. Yet they went ahead and please, I will want to have that kind of discussion so that I will come and ventilate my point all about
let's talk about
what I am trying to say about what my parting word about this is that they should, when the National Assembly is trying to enact certain laws or put, if this our representatives are trying to sponsor bills, they should have a wide consultation with their constituents, with the Nigerians, so that they will know the feelings of Nigerians first before going to make a caricature of our democracy on the floor of the National Assembly. For example, this particular bill they are trying to people, for example, if they should understand that if they're forced people to go and vote, those people may actually go there out of that coercion, compulsion. And thereafter, what did they do? Sometimes you will end up having more invalid votes than valid votes, in the sense that people are coerced into going there. They went there to vote, quite okay. They are not there because they have willingly gone there. So they
didn't have the education. They will
deliberately, invalidate those ballot papers by either printing wrongly or maybe ruffling those papers and so on and so forth. So when our national representatives or our representatives for that matter try to sieve our opinions, try to understand the reasoning of their constituents, then I think bills that are sponsored on the floor of national, will discuss on the floor of national, would be more robust than this kind of thing, caricaturist things we see.
Now, Prof, just 30 seconds. Improving electoral integrity, getting the lawmakers along, what should be done in the immediate?
Well, they should ensure that INEC does its own work by empowering INEC in the first place. And laws that we have in place should be to make sure that INEC does its own work properly. Of course, by even punishing the INEC staff themselves when they don't do well, both the permanent and the ad hoc staff.
Okay.
All right, and that will be a fine place for us to leave it on today's edition of Perspectives, which our discussion focused on the bill in the House of Representatives seeking to make voting compulsory for all Nigerians. It has carried through second reading. This may refer to the Committee on Electoral Matters for further legislative action. We analyzed it here, and given that it's ongoing, we'll still take on it if eventually it sees the light of the day. Former resident electoral commissioner in Kogi State and former political science head of department at the Reverend Father Moses Oshua Dasu University, distinguished political science professor James Apan, joined us on this edition, and we are grateful to you, Prof, for your valuable insights on the program.
Thank you.
Dr. Gemane Guse is a former Labour Party House of Representatives candidate for Vandika Constitution in the 2023 general election. He is a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Linguistics, also at that university, a public affairs commentator. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your valuable thoughts.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel.
Dear listener, that's our program today. Join us next week, Monday, for a fresh edition. My name is Nathaniel, and have yourself a great weekend, and be a patriotic Nigerian to vote for your leaders. Goodbye.